Quickly this one again. I could have just avoided, streaming again on YouTube at this point. Yeah, now I'm live. Now I'm live. Now I actually am live. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Just in case. I've been streaming for 1 hour now. Oop. Okay. Let's look for another interesting video. Top 20 most sought after weapons for Trasmog. Let's see how many I have.
In this video, we'll be going over some of the...
I always been like a bit of a collector myself. Let's see how many I have.
sought after transmog weapons in WoW.
Let's
These
see,
weapons
let's see.
can
I'm
come from
curious,
any
I'm
source,
curious.
but they must still be obtainable in the modern game.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we can't include items such as the Staff of Atiash or the Corrupted Ashbringer.
No.
First up on our list at
Okay.
number 20 is the Chromatic Sword. This sword is the only open world drop on this list and is desirable for its unique weapon glow, which has a vaguely rainbow theme. The Chromatic Sword was added to the game of vanilla, and its only sources from a rare Elite Basilisk, Scalebelly, and Stranglethorn, from which it has a drop rate of approximately 23%. This remained the case until the Cataclysm expansion, when the old world was revamped and Stranglethorn was split into 2 subzones, and the sword was removed entirely from the game, since loot and quests were significantly altered and changed in the old world. The sword remained unavailable until the Battle for Azeroth expansion, when the Chromatic Sword was re-added to the game, with zone scaling changing, making it so it was able to be looted again, since it could only drop from a specific level of the mod. Unfortunately, the drop rate for the sword is much lower, somewhere around 1%. Blizzard have consistently been re-adding content lost to the Cataclysm, with the most significant comebacks returning the Dragonflight expansion, with multiple old dungeons being re-added to the game. And at number 19, we have a famous blade in Warcraft's history and lore, which was added in the Dragonflight expansion, Quel'Zarum, High Blade of the Lion, which was Anduin Lothar's sword. Anduin Lothar is a namesake of King Anduin, and was a close friend of Medivh and King Gawain Rin, who was Varied's father and Anduin Rin's grandfather. This one-handed sword was added in the Mega Dungeon Dawn of the Infinite, and dropped from the Time Lost Battlefield encounter. Luckily, Blizzard was smart enough to make it drop from both Grommash Hellscream and Anduin Lothar in the Alliance and Horde versions of the encounter, respectively. This means that one of the swords that essentially founded the Alliance can also be obtained by Alliance players when they defeat Grommash instead of Anduin Lothar. Indeed, had Variant not come across Shalabane, today Anduin might be carrying this sword instead. So far, Anduin Lothar's other sword, the Royal Sword, has not made an appearance in the game as an actual weapon that is able to be wielded by players yet. Next up at number 18, we have another famous ancient Quel'Dallar sword. This time, we have the Quel'Dallar. This sword is highly sought after for 4 main reasons, which are for the lore, for the appearance, for the achievement, and of course, for that fat loot. While questing in Icecrown, players encounter Bloodkin Lanethel, who destroys the sword she once wielded where she fell near the Argent Tournament grounds at Quel'Dallar's Rest. To obtain Quel'Dallar, players embark on an epic quest chain that starts with the item called the Battered Hill. However, this item is only available at a small drop rate from mobs in the Halls of Reflection dungeon. Players restore Quel'Dallar to its former glory for the respective factions they work for in Dalaran. For Alliance players, this involves a storyline with the Silver Covenant, and for Horde players, the factions involved with the Sunreapers. Quel'Dallar has its own storied history, and it was originally forged by the ancient Kald'arai with the help of the dragon aspects of Aegis Pass. The Return of Quel'Dallar questline consists of 13 quests, and the major highlights include fighting the sword to subdue it when it comes to life, and purifying the blade in the Sunwell. We can't do this storyline justice with such a short description, but it certainly is a memorable one. Upon completion of this questline, the players earn the achievement, the Sword in the Skull. What makes this questline unique is that upon completion, classes that can wield swords are given a choice of one of 4 different versions of this newly remade blade. 2 of these swords are one-handed and 2 are two-handed. The two-handed versions are named Quel'Dallar, Might of the Faithful, and the other is Quel'Dallar, Ferocity of the Scorn. The 2 one-handed swords are named Quel'Dallar, Cone of the Shadows, and Quel'Dallar, Lens of the Mind. Classes that cannot wield swords, which in Wrath included druids, priests, and shamans, are given a pity consolation.
Does it give the old 4 aspects in the new version of the game? I have these lapses. Do we get all those aspects with just one quest line?
Choice of one of 3 different maces.
I'm not sure.
This loot is notable in Wrath because it gave a weapon that was at a level equal to that of heroic versions of Icecrown Citadel. Finally, Blood Elves get their own slightly different end quests at the end of the questline. After turning in the quest, Alliance players will see a pop-up of Orisa Windrunner celebrating the occasion, and Horde players will see a Thys Sunreaver yell. While somewhat annoying, luckily, since the dropped item is so rare, these pop-ups don't happen much, which is a good thing because there definitely isn't another annoying NPC in Dalaran who likes to shout things about what task players have accomplished. Joking aside, the quest chain has had a serious influence on the game in many ways. To name a few, the entire idea of a somewhat customizing Legion artifact weapon with different appearances can probably be linked back to the different versions of Quel'Dalar that sword wielders can obtain. The dragon aspects have only empowered a few items in lore, and Quel'Dalar being among them may have led to some of them coming to check out the Heart of Azeroth in BFA and saying, yeah, that's cool and all, but it could use some more Azeroth power. So with all this talk, why is Quel'Dalar so far from this list at only number 18? We placed it here for 3 reasons. First, while the battered hilt drop is very small, it can be sold on the auction house and can sometimes be found in the black market auction house as well. As of the time of writing this video, in current WoW, the hilt was going for around 140,000 gold. If a player has that much gold, then Quel'Dalar is much easier to obtain, and as such loses some of its uniqueness factor. Second, players are only allowed to choose one of the weapons and can only gain one weapon appearance at the end of the questline. Unlike more recent quests in Modern WoW, not all the appearances are unlocked following the turn of the quest.
So
second, if your class can wield a sword but you want a mace, you're out of luck because you don't have access to the quest for the maces at all. Additionally, the questline is not repeatable. With 7 different variations and appearances, if a player actually wanted all 7 items, they would need over 1 million gold to buy all 7 hilts at the auction house. The million gold would also have to be split across 7 characters and be planned out to make sure each class can wield the weapon type that the player wants. Third, and finally, and most importantly, the Sword of Quel'Dalar has been said by Blizzard to be more of a novelty item. Quel'Dalar is the sister blade of Quel'Serrar, the high blade that is more famous for being used with the Quel'Dorai and not the Kal'Dorai, hence why Blood Elves get their own special quest at the end. While the Quel'Serrar is a famous blade and sought out after in its own right, it was removed from the game in Wrath when Nyx's Lair was revamped in patch 3.2, and so we unfortunately can't include it on this list. Partially to compensate for this loss, Blizzard added Quel'Dalar to the game in the next patch in Wrath, patch 3.3 for the Lich King. It's a fun quest chain that was thrown in just because Blizz could and made the story feel more connected to the player. Another reason, albeit a minor one, is that non-sword wielding classes that put in all the work to resolve the blade and the blade says it doesn't accept the player as its wielder, which is a bit rude since you just saved the ungrateful sword and essentially brought it back to life. And at number 17, we have Zinrock, Destroyer of Worlds. This is an impressive 2-minute sword, and there were actually 2 versions of it. We'll be focusing on the second iteration since the first one was removed when Zul'Gurub was updated in Cataclysm. The original Zinrock drops from Hakar and Zul'Gurub. The Cataclysm one comes from the archaeology profession and is one of the few weapons that can be obtained from this profession. This newer version from Cataclysm has different colors compared to the classic one, and was meant as sort of a consolation prize if the player did not acquire the original prior to the revamp. This sword comes, of course, from Troll Archaeology and requires 150 Troll Archaeology fragments to complete.
It takes
and of course,
such a long
just
time. Some people got lucky.
As a fun fact, this sword actually has a brother. Its brother is Jinrock the Dark Apocalypse, which drops from Zul'Jin and Zul'Alan. The next weapon on our list comes at number 16 and is Nazuro the Unbound Legacy. Added in Dragonflight expansion, the legendary quality weapon is unique for 2 reasons. First, it can only be obtained by the Evoker class, and second, it is the only fist weapon legendary in the game, at least at the time of writing this video. The legendary is crafted and requires some intensive and time-consuming resource gathering and involves numerous reagents. The item that starts the quest chain to obtain the weapon drops from Scale Commander Sarkath, the final boss of Aberrus, the Shadow Crucible raid, introduced in WoW in patch 10.1. This dropped an item called the Cracked Titan Gem, and starts the short quest chain to obtain the legendary. In addition to crafting ingredients, players must also recruit crafters from other professions to help them with certain parts, which makes it all the more heady. While the transmog is definitely cool, that is pretty much the only thing cool about it. The weapon does have a special ability, but this ability simply just buffs a nearby player and feels rather lackluster, having to put in so much time and effort into making it. This weapon is also infamous for being the Ronin 2.0 announcement. When the Evoker turns in the final quest to receive the legendary, the message pops up, a triumphant roar echoes from atop the seat of the aspects, as Nazuro the Unbound Legacy is formed. Every expansion needs a good meme or two, and this message certainly fulfills the criteria for Dragonflight. Next, at number 15, is a legendary mace, Valinar, Hammer of the Ancient Kings. This one-handed mace is meant for healing specs and was added with the launch of Ulduar in patch 3.1. Classes that can obtain and wield this weapon include Druids, Paladins, Priests, and Shamans. In this Pandaria, the Monk class was added to this list, and Dragonflight Invokers were also added to the list. While primarily a healing weapon, this can give friendly targets an absorption shield, and this weapon was also a fairly good DPS weapon for its time, especially for Shadow Priests. To obtain this weapon, a player must collect 30 of an item called the Fragments of Valinar, which have a low chance to drop from every boss in Ulduar at around 20%. The chance does increase towards the end bosses in their hard mode difficulty, but as you can imagine, collecting 30 of these fragments, especially with good loot, was an enormous challenge. When players did finally collect all 30 fragments and combine them together, they were sent to a Titan console in Ulduar, which instructed them how to throw the pieces into Yogg-Saron, and then defeat him.
Oh, yeah,
Not
the
only
tank
must you
thing,
defeat
but yeah.
Yaxaron, but you can only cast the fragments into this big old mouth while he's casting the Deafening Roar ability, a hard mode only ability. When and if a player does finish the second quest, they will receive the hammer. When the hammer is equipped, the player will receive a feat of strength called Valinar Hammer of Kings. There are two main reasons this weapon is so sought after, aside from its appearance. The first is that it's a long and fairly grueling quest, requiring many weeks, if not months to years, to complete. This means few people have it, and is a sign of eliteness and prestige. Combine this with the fact that it all takes place in Ulduar, a longtime fan favorite raid, and you now have an instant connection to nostalgia. Secondly, this weapon is one of the few in the entire game to be a legendary weapon specifically for healing classes and support related rather than a simple DPS weapon. Because of this, Valinar Hammer of the Ancient Kings comes in at number 15 on this list. At number 14, we have another legendary for Dragonflight, and its name is Firolath, the Dream Render. This two-handed axe drops from Firerack the Blazing, the final boss in Midgard the Dream's Hope. This is a very cool-looking weapon. Actually, it's a hot-looking weapon. There is even a cinematic of the weapon being built for Firerack. However, given that this weapon can cut between realities as shown by Firerack when he enters the Emerald Dream, perhaps it's not the best idea to have a dumb warrior wielding it. While certainly not the only fire weapon on this list, it's coveted for not only its appearance, but also for being the weapon of perhaps Dragonflight's most favorite antagonist from the expansion. The weapon, design-wise, is comparable to the previous 200 legendary Shadowmourne, sharing its shape but completely adjacent in aesthetic. Since it's a two-handed axe, only Death Knight's Paladin warriors can obtain it and equip it. It is said by Blizzard that this weapon has a bad luck protection built into it, and will function similar to the Evoker Legendary from the 16th entry. Every week you kill Firerack and Heroic and above, you do not receive the axe, and the following week it will increase the drop chance until you receive it. The Evoker Legendary also will only unlock for all players to obtain once the first mythic kill of Sarkareth was completed in your region, so it is expected this legendary will behave the same way. Next up at lucky number 13, we have one of WoW's most enduring memes in the form of Thunder Fury Bloodspite of the Windseeker. This one-handed legendary sword starts a quest after 2 items collected from the Molten Core raid. The left half of the bind is the Windseeker drops from the boss Baron Geddon, and the right half drops from Gar. When one of these pieces is presented to the Twilight Hammer cultist High Lord Demetriad and Silithus, he gives the player an item called the Vessel Rebirth, which starts a chain where the player must gather a ton of special crafted ingredients and then finally kill one of the strongest air elementals, Prince Thunderin, who appears as a raid boss. In fact, Thunderin is so powerful that after players defeat Alakir, the elemental lord of air during the Cataclysm expansion, Thunderin replaces him as the new elemental lord of air. Aside from trade chat spam, Thunder Fury is highly sought after for a few reasons. First, it represents a key part of the vanilla experience for most players, and Molten Core is the quintessential poster child for raiding in WoW. Second, the sword has a cool special ability, which is similar to a Shaman's Chain Lightning ability, but additionally it reduces nature resistance and slows attack speed of its first target. Finally, even if we did briefly mention in the questline, killing what is essentially a god and taking its weapon is pretty cool, especially after you spend all that time and energy to reforge it too. While it may be the oldest progenitor of the epic legendary questlines, it's still one of the first in the game and has a special place in many people's hearts. Thunder Fury provides a breath of fresh air and awards a feat of strength achievement upon equipping it. Thunder Fury's status as a legendary meme has all been cemented, as even Blizzard themselves have shown. When Blizz added the inflatable Thunder Fury toy in WoW's 11th anniversary, when equipped, the player gets the achievement, Did Someone Say? The fact that it even is a meme in the first place shows how attached the player base is to this weapon. And while it may be more of a playful and fun weapon appearance, the weapon itself is still highly sought after, and players have spent years farming multi-core for the pieces in order to do the quest chain that rewards it. One final note before we move on, although druids, priests, and shamans cannot equip Thunder Fury because of the sword, it's the only legendary weapon in the game that any player can acquire because the quest items can be looted by any class, and the quests to obtain Thunder Fury are not class specific. Next up, we have our first legendary bow on this list, Thoradal, the Star's Fury, which drops from Kill Jaden in Sunwell Plateau raid. Unlike many other legendaries in WoW, Thoradal may be unique in that it has none or almost none.
Personally, I would have put Thoradal, I mean, most sought after, Thoradal. More than
Next
the
to no lore
Fearlock.
surrounding it. Despite several lore speculations, the most likely real-world reason is that Blizz just wanted to give hunters a nice, shiny, two-handed legendary bow from the final boss of the Burning Crusade
Wait, did you
expansion.
just say
Thoradal's
the
special
only
ability was that it could magically
legendary bow?
produce ammo, meaning the
It's
hunter
incorrect.
no longer had to carry around ammo or ammunition in their bags. However, when ammo and ammo bags were removed from the game entirely in the Cataclysm expansion, the bow really lost its unique ability. This legendary bow is closely linked to the Sunwell, and even Blood Elves do not fully understand why or how it exists. As of the Dragonflight expansion, evokers, rogues, hunters, and warriors can all obtain and equip the bow, which has a drop rate of around 7%. The bow was the only legendary bow in the game for a long time, and its mysterious origin shrouded in mystery, which makes it a highly sought after weapon. Finally, obtaining and equipping the bow awards the Thoradol the Star's Fury feat of strength achievement. And in 11th place, we have a set of 2 rogue-only legendary daggers, which make up the Fangs of the Father set. The main hand dagger is named Golan, Twilight of the Aspects, and the offhand dagger is called Tyriosh, Nightmare of Ages. Not only did this set grant extra agility and combo points, but it also had a special use ability that acted as a slow ball. These 2 daggers were added in Cataclysm and required quite a bit of time spent within the Dragon Soul raid. In fact, it's within the Dragon Soul raid that players must talk to Lord Dravastras to begin the quest chain to unlock the dagger. One of the things that makes these 2 daggers impressive, aside from their appearance, is the questline to obtain them. Rogues work with the newly hatched Prince Rathian, who just hatched from A in the Badlands. This quest chain has 13 quests in total, and players slowly build each dagger up in 3 stages. Golan starts out as a dagger named Fear, then becomes the Sleeper, and finally turns into Golan. For Tyriosh, the dagger starts out as Vengeance before becoming the Dreamer, and then achieving its final form. The epic conclusion of this questline has players defeating Deathwing in the Dragon Soul raid, and then bringing a piece of his general Rathian. When the quest is turned in, a cutscene plays which shows Rathian's true intentions of why he was at Ravenhold Manor. I don't want to spoil it because it actually is kind of interesting the first time you see it. After the cutscene is over, Rathian will then forge the daggers for the rogue. Upon equipping the daggers, rogues will get the Fangs of the Father feat of strength achievement. These 2 daggers are also unique for several gameplay reasons as well. The Fang of the Fathers were, up to this point of the game, the only legendary weapon exclusively available to one class. They also gave rogue players more playable content, and the questline gave some heavy lore information on the origins of Rathian. While the devs and writers probably didn't think too much of Rathian at the time of the writing and the questline for Cataclysm, Rathian would later go on to become a much larger part of the story in Mr. Pandaria expansion, and even later on became a main character in the Battle for Azeroth and Dragonflight expansions. And at number 10, we have our first non-legendary weapon in a while, Fandrel's Flame Scythe, which is quite a unique weapon that drops from Fandrel's Sanctum in the Firelands raid from Cataclysm. While more of a fiery staff than an actual scythe, Fandrel's Flame Scythe is highly sought after by druids because of the weapon's closeness with the druids of the flames. Fandrel's Flame Scythe possesses a unique ability that allows a druid to turn into a fiery flame cat while in cat form, as long as the druid currently has the standard equip. This made it essentially give a druid's feral form a new fiery skin that many druid players wish to obtain. This appearance for the cat proved so popular that Blizzard added in the Burning Seed and Mob, which were a consumable item that could be looted. When used, this item gave the cat form appearance for 1 hour. Additionally, in Mr. Pandaria, Blizzard added a toy which did the same effect, called Fandrel's Seed Pouch. Finally, in Shadowlands, Blizzard allowed the form to be unlocked permanently in the barbershop once the staff's appearance had been collected on the player's account. While the staff itself is gorgeous, the mere fact that Blizzard had to add 3 different changes after it was first added to the game to keep up with the player's demand shows how special and unique the staff was. In fact, we even covered this a bit in more detail in our History in the Druid's Cat form video. All in all, Fandrel's Flame Scythe truly is fire and well-deserving response.
Pretty good, I'd say. I'm taking it very slow, but yeah, it's good, it's good. Having fun is not the term I'd be using to describe the TBC experience, but it's chill, very chill, yeah. Fun, yeah. More, I'm wasting more time traveling from one place to the other than playing the actual game, so I can define that as fun, but pretty different experience, yeah, from retail. So I'm enjoying it overall. Very fun. Especially, I'm not gonna lie, I'm enjoying the professions. The profession side, I'm really liking it. It feels better. Where are you from? Italy. Italian shrimp. I'm liking the professions more because they feel more useful in a way. Leveling them doesn't feel like a waste of time and resources. Unlike retail, then where you kind of just level to get to the last recipe, the strongest one that everyone then asks for. So yeah, that's something that I'm enjoying a bit more. So. The combat is very slow, but not too bad. Let's go on with the video.
Number 10. Now we move on to number 9, which is another weapon from the Firelands raid. Dragon Wrath Terragossa's Rest is a legendary staff that can only be obtained by druids, evokers, mages, priests, shamans, and warlocks. To earn this staff, players must complete a quest chain with 15 quests, which involve the bronze and blue dragonflight. After gathering a branch of Nordrasil and farming several weeks for mats and Firelands, players can finally complete the final quest, called the Stuff of Legends. Players may be familiar with this quest because the scenario actually unfolds in either Stormwind or Orgrimmar, where the blue dragon actually shows up to encounter the staff. Aside from its impressive appearance, the staff boasts 2 unique abilities. First, it can replicate the player's spells, straight up at least doubling their damage sometimes whenever it procs. Second, when used, it can transform the player into Terragossa's Visage, which allows them to fly. The quest line to obtain the staff isn't too complex, but it does have some interesting lore, including politicking amongst the blue dragonflight and how Deathwing has infiltrated some of the other dragonflights. Kalecgos also appears in the quest line, though this is before he becomes an aspect. It wasn't until Dragonflight when Blizzard added in the mount called Lingering Echo of Terragossa, which finally meant that players no longer had...
I don't know what the streamer community is. I just stream for fun. I don't really have a goal right now, so thanks for the offer, but I'm gonna refuse. I'm not streaming like daily or anything. Just when I have time, I like to put on the stream and talk to myself for some reasons. It's a caster, but I can pull the other one. I can lose. I've lost aggro of this guy and that guy as well. I have to think of a way, and hopefully anyone around here does not steal my things. I pull this guy again. Guy is chasing me. I hit this guy once. Slowing. I will run to the corner. This guy should still be in aggro. Other guy should lose the aggro in a few steps. I got stunned, not good. Use this one to reduce. No. Why is he here? I'm dead. Oh, still alive. Kill. Okay. The important part is that I'm alive. Guy is still dead. The other guy escaped. I'm losing one guy. Shit. I do not have potions nor anything. I almost had that guy. Yeah. If I had a potion, I could have killed both. But I'm gonna kill the other trogs and hope for something. Let's go.
To have the staff equipped, be able to transform. With the Blue Dragon Cemetery now accessible again, Kalecgos and the Adventurer finally lay Terragossa's spirit to rest. This item is one of the few items in the game that turns the player themselves into a mount. A similar item is the Vial of Sands from Mechanicalism Alchemy, which also turns the player into a dragon and allows for others to ride them. When the player finally equips Dragon Wrath Terragossa's Wrath, they earn the feat of strength achievement of the same name. Up next, we have the Scythe of the Unmaker. This polearm is a cosmic-only item that drops from Argus the Unmaker and Antorus the Burning Throne. Since it's a polearm, it can only drop from Death Knights, Druids, Evokers, Hunters, Monks, Paladins, and Warriors. While only a cosmetic item, it has a very cool appearance.
Legion
Remix,
want to wield so everyone has
Titan of Death. There's a blue tinted version of this item that drops in any difficulty of the raid in Legion, but in Mythic, a red tinted version can also drop. This weapon is unique in another way in the fact that it drops separately from Argus's other loot. It instead will automatically appear in the player's inventory, so be sure you have a backspace if you want to farm this scythe. Presumably, this scythe was made to be cosmetic only because players already had their own weapons in the form of artifacts. But then again, perhaps the devs considered making it a real weapon, but decided against it because, after all, do you really want a Scythe of Destruction beyond mortal comprehension being wielded by a bloodthirsty player with no morals? The red tint version of this cosmetic weapon that drops in the Mythic-only Argus can presumably be tied to the Mythic-only phase of the Argus fight, where Argus and his weapon get a lot more red tinted. Killing a Titan itself is a pretty big deal, but getting this weapon is pretty sweet as well, especially when it's as cool as the Scythe of the Unmaker. Luckily, after Argus dies, his big red soul doesn't cause any more damage and lead to disastrous aftereffects. Next up at number 7, we're back for some more Firelord antics, this time with the legendary two-handed mace, Sulphurous Hand of Ragnaros. This is the second legendary weapon from the Molten Core raid, with the other being Thunder Fairy Blessed Blade of the Windseeker. Since it's a two-handed mace, only Death Knights, Druids, Evokers, Paladins, Shamans, and Warriors can wield it. Unlike most other legendary weapons in the game, this weapon actually has to be crafted with a blacksmith with a max skill. Sulphurus is created by combining the Eye of Sulphurus and the Sulfuron Hammer. The Eye of Sulphurus has about a 3% drop chance from Ragnaros and Core. The hammer can only be crafted by a blacksmith after they talk to the TBC in Blackrock Depths and gather a ton of reagents that can only be obtained from within and around Molten Core Raid. Added in patch 10.1.7, crafting Sulfuron Hammer will award the achievement Destined to be Legendary to the blacksmith. Once the base has been created and has been equipped by the player, it awards the feat of Strength achievement Sulphurus and Ragnaros. This weapon is notable for 3 reasons, aside from its appearance and lore. First, it is the only legendary to be completely crafted by the player in the game. Second, since the Sulfuron Hammer is bind on equip, to create and then wield the mace, the player must be a blacksmith and must have a 300 blacksmithing skill. Finally, Sulphurus is Ragnaros' personal weapon, and this itself brings up 2 points. First of these is that the other legendary weapon Molten Core, Thunder Fury Bloodsport the Windseeker, is the weapon of an Prince, who eventually becomes an Elemental Lord. So if a player has both Sulphurus Hand of Ragnaros and Thunder Fury Bloodsport the Windseeker, they have 2 weapons that once belonged to former Elemental Lords, and the former weapon of a current Elemental Lord. Finally, in the Firelands, Ragnaros drops a similar weapon, this time called Sulphurus the Extinguished Hand, which suggests that Ragnaros' real weapon was never taken. This is confirmed by the RPG, which says that the real Sulphurus was too big for any mortal to wield. But since the RPG is no longer canon, it's debatable as to whether the player has a replica, or Ragnaros had to make do with another similar weapon named Sulphurus after the player stole his original, the Molten Core. Ragnaros' huge mace does stay behind the Molten Core after he's defeated, but it also despawns after the corpse despawns. And speaking of weapons from vanilla, at number 6 we have Ash Candy, Great Sword of the Brotherhood. This epic two-handed sword drops from Nefarian Lair. What makes this sword unique is that its flavor text says the initials AL are etched on the hilt. Most seem to think that these initials stand for Anduin Lothar, but there has been no confirmation from Blizzard. To support this claim, Anduin Lothar fell in battle in the Burning Steppes, and from his memorial side, one can even see Blackrock Mountain. This sword has received 2 other nods in subsequent raids. First, in the Blackwing Descent raid in Cataclysm, Nefarian dropped a sword named Reclaimed Ashkandi Brotherhood of Ashkandur, which suggests that it was indeed a trophy that Nefarian originally took and somehow managed to reclaim after he was revived by the Twilight Hammer. Another sword with a similar name is called Ashkandur, Fall of the Brotherhood, which drops from the Echo of Neltharion in the raid Aberrus, the Shadow Crucible, which was added in Dragonflight. Finally, also added in Dragonflight and previously mentioned in this list, was Zaram. Highblade of the Lion is an actual sword that was wielded by Anduin Lothar. However, this Quell Zaram cannot hold up to Ashkandi for several reasons, which is why it was put so low on this list earlier. First, Ashkandi has been around since vanilla, and many people spent a lot of time farming for it. Secondly, Ashkandi is a two-handed sword, whereas Quell Zaram is a one-handed sword. Finally, while consuming timey-wimey bronze dragon time shenanigans, Quell Zaram is certainly not the blade from our own timeline, but from some other one, which significantly diminishes its value. Next up at number 5, we have the second legendary weapon only available to one class. Added the Shadowlands expansion, where Solari, Death's Whisper, is a bow that drops from Sylvanas Windrunner in this Sanctum of Domination raid. It can only be obtained by the Hunter class, and when equipped, it awards the feat of Strength achievement, Rashalar's Death's Whisper. The bow has a special ability called Wailing Arrow, which does AoE shadow damage and also silences targets for 5 seconds. This ability was later added as an option for marksman hunters with the talent tree revamp in Dragonflight. Despite all of Shadowland's shortcomings, a legendary bow from a fan favorite Sylvanas herself certainly was one of the highlights of expansion. This weapon is the Banshee's Queen's Imperial, and luckily she is still in the Maw, or else she would probably be coming after the Hunter who possesses it. Next up at number 4, we have the legendary two-handed axe from the Icecrown Citadel named Shadowmourne. This weapon can only be acquired by Death Knights, Paladins, and Warriors, and requires an intensive questline involving 10 quests throughout multiple weeks in Icecrown Citadel. Shadowmourne is made of the Warhammer wielded by Arthas Menethil during his life as a paladin. Players are instructed by High Lord Darren Morgreen himself to go to the Frostmourne Cavern to retrieve it and reforge Arthas' old weapon, Lights of Vengeance, into Shadowmourne. However, the Lich King has already anticipated this move and has his own plans. The first iteration of this axe is called Shadow's Edge, before it becomes empowered to become Shadowmourne. We can't give the questline story justice with such a short amount of time that we have, but it certainly is a long and fairly grueling one, requiring special mechanics with specific bosses in Icecrown Citadel for multiple weeks. The final quest requires the player to kill the Lich King with his former weapon in an iconic and sad twist of fate. After finally obtaining the legendary axe, equipping it will grant the player the feat of strength achievement Shadowmourne. This questline to obtain Shadowmourne is somewhat infamous and requires a lot of time, patience, and focus. As you can probably imagine, a legendary weapon from one of the most legendary raids in all of World of Warcraft is certainly going to have a place on this list. And at number 3 on this list, we have Gorehowl, Might of the Warchief. This two-handed axe also drops from the time-lost battlefield in the Dawn of the Infinite Dungeon added in Dragonflight, the same encounter that Quel's Aram, High-Blooded Lion, also drops from. Aside from being the weapon of the only Horde Warchief who did nothing wrong, this axe goes perfect along with the Tusk of Manaroth that so many players spent so long farming in the Siege of Orgrimmar. Garrosh is a fan-favorite character, and the fact that Blizzard is still adding content around him even almost a decade after they almost put him off the game in itself is impressive. Whether or not if it's fan service, this version of Gorehowl is highly sought after, and not just because so many Makar Orc warriors pretend to be Garrosh. Similarly to Quel's Aram, High-Blooded Lion, both factions can receive the axe, so even Alliance players can earn the Gorehowl as well. While Prince Melkazar in Karazhan does drop an axe named Gorehowl as well, this is directly contradicted in lore, which says Thrall held onto Gorehowl until he gave it to Garrosh personally. The new Gorehowl also uses the same model as the one that can be seen in Warlords of Draenor. Finally, there's a cool Easter egg where Orc characters that have the weapon equipped and choose the Warsong banner during the Orc Heritage questline may summon the Ghost of Grommash Hellscream, who will salute them. The weapon of one of WoW's most iconic characters being made obtainable by the players themselves is a pretty big deal. And to compensate, it's probably here that Blizzard decided to give Alliance players something and also added Quel's Aram as an afterthought almost. Overall, the weapon of Garrosh Hellscream, former Warchief of the Horde, finally being obtainable made a lot of players happy. And it's among one of the most interesting loot items that can drop in the Dawn of the Infinite Dungeon, which is why it's at number 3 on this list. And at number 2, we have Tashalok. This is another cosmetic weapon from the Titan from the Antorus the Burning Throne. Tashalok is a two-handed sword of the Titan Agrabah and has seen much use, including when Agrabah dueled with Sargeras himself. Not only is the appearance extremely cool looking, it's also an extremely low rate of dropping, speculated at around 0.1%. Tashalok drops from Agrabah himself, who serves as the penultimate boss before Argus. To say that this appearance is highly sought after is a vast understatement. While the Scythe of the Maker in the number 8 spot was cool, Tashalok is the sword of essentially a god. Like the Scythe of the Maker, players do not really receive the sword, but rather a cosmetic item of it. It is doubtful if a mortal could even wield Tashalok, since it's probably beyond comprehension of the player's physical limits. The lore behind this blade is important and historied, and it serves as a symbol of the Titan's might, which makes it all the more enticing for the player to have. Tashalok is a fire-infused weapon, which is quite a common trope in the weapons that we've seen so far. However, an epic, fiery weapon wielded by the Lieutenant of Sargeras is very hard to beat, and it's no wonder it's such a hot item. And finally, at number 1, we have the Warglaives of Azzinoth. These are a set of 2 blades, one main hand and one offhand, that together make up the Twin Blades of Azzinoth. Both of these blades are the Warglaives of Illidan Stormrage, and drop from him in the Black Temple, where he serves as the final boss. In game, both of these items are actually one-handed swords, as it wasn't until Legion when the Warglaive weapon type was added to the game alongside the Demon Hunter class. Since they're classified as swords, only Death Knights, Demon Hunters, Monks, Rogues, and Warriors can have the blades drop for them, and be able to equip them. These items are so integral to Illidan's story and Demon Hunters that they managed to get a new type of weapon added to the game in the Legion expansion. Even if it was 9 years later and Illidan's Warglaives only served as an inspiration, for a pair of legendary weapons to result in a new type of weapon being added is pretty impressive. Needless to say, both of these blades are very cool looking, and their drop rate is horrendously low, and players spent years farming for them. If that wasn't bad enough, they do not drop together, meaning you can continuously get one of the blades but not the other. The player can get the Feat of Strength achievement of Warglaives of Azzinoth, but only after equipping both blades. This means that players essentially have to farm the same boss twice to get 2 legendaries instead of 1. Wildhead lists the chance of each of the glaives to drop from Illidan at 5%, meaning if you were incredibly lucky and ran Black Temple only once, you would have a 0.25% chance to get both blades on the first run. Combine this on top of...
Sorry, I didn't listen. I heard about the chance of getting the both on the first run. Nice! We got it. Let me craft some clothes. I'm almost out.
The Black Temple already being a pretty long linear raid, and you can see why trying to take both of the main hand and offhand Warglaives is a massive pain in the Azzinoth. If the player has gotten the Feat of Strength achievement Warglaives of Azzinoth and they defeat Illidan in the Burning Crusade Time Walking as a Demon Hunter, they get the achievement, I'll hold these for you until you get out. This achievement also awards the Arsenal, the Warglaives of Azeroth transmog set only available for Demon Hunters, since the Warglaives are not swords, but Warglaives and need to have a different transmog. Blizzard is quite aware of how many people farm Black Temple to get the Warglaives, and there are even 2 items in the game that take players directly back to the Black Temple to make it easier for farming. The first of these is a neck item obtained from doing a series of quests and is called the Blessed Medallion of Karabor. It has a 50-minute cooldown and teleports the player to the front entrance of the Black Temple. The second item to get to Black Temple is by Capri, the time-walking vendor in Chatterat City during the TBC time walking. Capri sells the Fractured Necrolite Skull for 750 Time Warp badges. Added in patch 7.2.5, this toy is pretty unique and nifty. When used, it kills a nearby critter and opens a mini dark portal to the Black Temple. Illidan has long been a fan-favorite character, and his redemption arc in Legion was generally well received. But when he also drops one of, if not the most sought-after pair of weapons in the game, of course the Warglaives of Azeroth are going to be #1 on this list. Well, that about does it for this video.
Yeah,
and before
I kind of agree, but at the same time, I'd like to disagree. But I have to agree. And this is why... The reason is you cannot trust the Warglaive of Azeroth on anyone except Demon Hunters. It does make sense, obviously. It does make sense, but you know, you have a lot of legendary items that you can trust on everyone. So why not? I mean, I can get the bow and transmute it on Hunters. Right? I mean, that's the only class in the game that uses bow. And I wish it will change. I wish for a change. You mean? You have a lot of classes that uses similar weapons. I wish they had a class that use like Warglaives and bows. You know, some kind of like demon hunter, but not like a demon, more like horror around. I don't know, something hunter that uses a bow. I mean, like a scout. I don't know. Uses Warglaives and bows to fight. Now, that'd be cool. That'd be we a class that, if there's a class that has a unique weapon, is something, but a unique type of weapon bound to just one class, it's sad, because when you drop that shit in raid, you go like, Warglaives. No one here is a demon hunter. Okay, in the trash bin. You know, this is a bit sad, in my opinion. But yeah, I can see why Warglaives unique to Demon Hunters. Oh, more potions, yeah! Yo. I already have those. 3 damage, 2 damage. Oh, they're better than mine, what the hell? Can't I craft, sorry? Raft, wooden stone. Ruin, copper, rough grinder. I'm not leveled up enough to craft those yet. I'd like a vendor. Can I have a vendor? Can you please have a vendor? Can me please has one? No? Yeah, that's another thing that I always hated about vanilla. Like a more vanilla version of the game. Just give me everything at the same time. Why do I have to go like boom bim boom bam bim boom bim bam boom bam bim boom? Just give me everything now, man. Don't let me bounce from one side to the other. I'm not sure. Can I fly to Stormwind? Or am I missing the flight here? Because I cannot get the flight here, so I just hope for the skip, you know. Like a toot toot. Or do I have to fly back to, you know, Ironforge and then get the tram? Oh, no.
Here are a few things that I want to mention briefly. First,
let's go for some shorts. No, but then rarest title. I'm not a big fan of titles, so not very interested. Mythbusters of Vendetta. Okay, why a housing tour? Everyone got explained. Why Overwatch beta maps felt different. It wasn't just nostalgia. The Amazing World of Gumball is and will always be, in my opinion, one of the best cartoons ever. I'm saying this now and I will die on this hill. Press the magic cards, the most evil zone. Die to progress project, Ebon hold. It's basically over. Yeah, that's what we saw the other day, basically. you're watching that Ashes of Creation video. Pioneer Light Race, Mr. Gem. Should we stop? How long has it been? Almost 2 hours. Maybe. Let me first sell everything. Level 41. Oh, finally vendor. Is this a reagent? Briatorn. Oh, whoa, wait. Shot. Light shot, that's 1.5, that's 3.5. Let's go with the light. Don't need that much. Okay. 400 shots, I think we are good for a while. I think we're gonna be good for a while, you know? No, I wanted to see if there was a trainer somewhere around here, you know? Like a blacksmith. Metalsmith. Is there a blacksmith? Somewhere around? I don't think so. These aren't even guards. Nope. No. Nope. Never mind. Is the new Overwatch patch out?
What's on your mind?
I'd like to test the new champion if it's out. Exit game. Just put it here for a moment. No, pre-release content downloaded, so it's not out yet. Never mind then. We're gonna probably stream tomorrow. Overwatch. Yeah, I'm tired. I've done shit today, so I'm pretty on the tired side. Well, guys, thanks for watching. See you another time.